What's up, everyone? My name is Taylor Nemechek, and this is Who's That Saint? But before we get started on today's saint, I want to introduce you to a friend. This here is Reginald, the liturgical recorder. As you can see, he has the liturgical colors as strings on him, and that's basically the only reason he's a liturgical recorder. So, I thought I'd just play you a little quick section of a tune, and make sure to comment below if you know the name of that tune. And so here we go. There you go, that's the section. Leave that comment below, and now let's jump into today's saint. So today, we're going to be talking about a really phenomenal young saint, who also just so happens to be my favorite saint, Saint Philomena. So the question is, who is Saint Philomena? And the unique thing is, though she lived around 300 AD, the answer to this question didn't come until the early 1800s. Now what do I mean by this? Well, in 1802, a worker's pickaxe struck the surface of a tomb in an underground cemetery within the catacombs of Priscilla. This was kind of odd. So when the sand was cleared away, there were 3 funeral tiles there that were painted with a red paint, and they read Pax Tecum Philomena, which means peace be with you, Philomena. And so the authorities were notified of this, and they examined the remains that they found within this tomb, and they discovered the bones to be of a young woman of the ages between 13 and 15. So from there, the remains were taken to the treasury of sacred relics, but nothing was known about who this person was other than the name of Philomena. And this young woman lived in the 300s AD. That was 1500 years ago. So were we ever going to really find the story of this young woman? What's fascinating is a couple years after Philomena's relics were discovered, she revealed her story to 3 different people. But what's weird are these 3 people lived in entirely different parts of the world and had never met each other, yet their reports on Philomena's life were strangely identical. And so today we're going to be looking at the account which was given to Venerable Mother Maria Lucia, who was a Dominican tertiary. So in August of 1833, Mother Luisa was praying before a statue of Saint Philomena when she felt this burning desire to get to know the story of Philomena. Well, a while later when she was in her cell, this desire was satisfied when the sweet voice of Philomena spoke to her. And what we're going to go through next is the story of what Philomena told to Mother Luisa. So both of Philomena's parents were of royal blood. Her father was a prince who governed a small state in Greece. They were idolaters and without child, and they would continually offer sacrifices and prayers to their false gods. But within the palace, there was a Christian doctor from Rome by the name of Publius, and he was in the service of Philomena's father. He was a devout Christian, and being led by the Holy Spirit, he spoke to Philomena's parents about Christianity and promised happiness and to pray for them if they would just be baptized. So, guided by the Holy Spirit, Philomena's parents were converted, and shortly after, the happiness that Publius promised was granted, and Philomena was born. And at birth, her parents named her Lumena, and at baptism, they gave her the name Philomena, which means daughter of light. And she was believed to be born around January 10th of 291 AD. Well, when Philomena was 13, her father had to make a trip to Rome due to the threat of an unjust war. So naturally, he brought along his wife and Philomena. And they were admitted for an audience before the emperor. And as soon as Diocletian, the emperor, laid eyes on Philomena, he was transfixed. And the entire time Philomena's father was speaking and pleading before the emperor, all Diocletian could focus on was Philomena. So when Philomena's father finally finished speaking and pleading, Diocletian, in his words, said, "I shall place at your disposal all the force of the empire. I ask only one thing, and that is the hand of your daughter." And Philomena's father, completely in shock at the honor that he was proposed, quickly accepted that proposal. On their return home, Philomena pleaded with her parents to not let the marriage go through, for she had promised her virginity to Jesus. But her parents tried everything to dissuade her from this promise, saying things even like, "You were still young when you made this promise." But Philomena was strengthened by God and would not change her mind. With a final attempt to change Philomena's mind, her parents fell to their knees before Philomena and cried, "My child, have pity on your father, your mother, your country, and our subjects." But Philomena firmly stated that her promise of virginity came before everything, and that her kingdom was heaven. But because of the promise her father had made to the emperor, they had to return to Rome to the imperial chamber. When they returned to the imperial chamber in Rome, she was taken before the emperor, where she had to face several more attacks before the emperor, and a fit of rage threw Philomena into the palace prison, where she was ordered to be loaded with chains. And the emperor visited her every single day and tried to persuade her out of this promise she had made. And after a few days, the order was given for her chains to be loosened, and she was given small portions of bread and water. And he continued his attacks on her, several of which would have been fatal to her purity had it not been for the grace of God. After 37 days of imprisonment, a heavenly light appeared in the chamber Philomena was being kept in, and in the midst of this light she saw Mary holding Jesus in her arms. Mary said to her, "My daughter, 3 more days of prison, and after 40 days you shall leave this state of pain." This brought so much joy to Philomena, but then Mary added that in quitting this torture and prison, she would have to endure frightful torments far more terrible and far worse than the torture she was currently having to endure. But Mary told her to have courage. She said, "You are called Lumena, just as your spouse is called Light and Sun. I will aid you, and your angel Gabriel, whose name expresses strength, will come to your aid." Mary's words gave courage to Philomena, and when the vision disappeared, her cell was filled with a celestial perfume. What Mary had prepared Philomena for was soon experienced. After 40 days of imprisonment, like Mary had told her, and did you notice how she was imprisoned for 40 days? That's kind of a special number, isn't it? Well, anyway, Diocletian, despaired of bending her, condemned her to be stripped and scourged in public to offend her virtue. The prison guards hesitated to unclothe her completely, but she was tied to a column in the presence of all the people of the court, and she was lashed and scourged until she was bathed in blood. And Philomena described it as her whole body feeling like one single open wound. After this, she was dragged back into the dungeon and expected to die, and through all this she did not faint. But after she was left to die in the dungeon, 2 angels, shining with light, appeared in the darkness and poured a soothing balm over her wounds, bestowing on her a renewed vigor, and she even was healed. With this change in Philomena, she was brought before the emperor, where he viewed her with lust and a greedy desire. He used seductive words to try and tell her that her healing was at the hand of the Roman god Jupiter, who Diocletian had sent to overlook Philomena, and that this was proof that Jupiter wanted Philomena to be the Empress of Rome. But filled with the divine spirit, Philomena spoke of the faith and completely stumped Diocletian and his courtiers. And with a renewed anger, he ordered that an anchor be tied around the neck of Philomena and that she be thrown into the Tiber River. The order was executed, but God sent 2 angels who unfastened the anchor from Philomena's neck, and the angels transported her gently and in full view of the multitude that were present upon the shore, and she was completely dry and unharmed. And at the sight of this, many proclaimed Christianity on the spot and were converted. The emperor then, in even more anger, had her dragged through the streets and shot with a shower of arrows. Through all this she did not faint, and she was left to die in the dungeons, but she fell into this sweet sleep, and when she awoke, she found that she was completely cured of her wounds. When Diocletian heard this, a renewed fit of rage overcame him, and he ordered that a second shower of arrows be shot at Philomena. The guards drew their bows, but with all their strength they could not get the arrows to follow their intentions. The emperor, being present and seeing this, thought that this was an act of magic, so he ordered that the arrows first be put into a fire so that their tips would be in flames, and then shot at Philomena. So the orders were executed, and the arrows were shot. And this time they left the bows, but after covering just a short distance between the guards and Philomena, the arrows made just a complete 180 and returned to where they had been shot and struck the archers that had shot the arrows. 6 of the archers were killed, and many of the people that were present and witnessed this once again converted on the spot. And totally enraged at this point, the emperor finally just ordered Philomena to be beheaded. And Philomena's soul took flight at this because she knows she would finally be joined with her heavenly spouse. Philomena was killed on a Friday at the 3rd hour after midday, the exact hour her spouse Jesus had been killed. And it's thought that she was killed in the year of 304. Saint Philomena is best known as the patron saint of the youth, specifically young babies and children. But she's also known as the patron saint of young couples, the imprisoned and afflicted, and many more. So there's our answer to who is Saint Philomena. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something you didn't already know about Saint Philomena. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like on this video, and comment below if you have any saints you'd like to see on Who's That Saint. And as always, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time on Who's That Saint.